Good morning. This is Professor Anderson with a little bit of feedback, excuse me, for your writing assignment number one, rough draft. So I like how you have these. I was just going to give you a quick overview. How I work. Feedback is to give a general, what I call the nuts and bolts, to make sure you have all the components. I run through quickly to observe and review that. And then I go back through with a little bit more of a fine-tooth comb, and I call that the nitty-gritty. And that looks at a little bit more of the individual elements of each of the sections. So in the nuts and bolts factor, you have the four main components and you formatted them correctly. So I can see that just briefly. I take a quick glance through to make certain that all the elements are there. When we go back through for a nitty gritty, let's take a look at the background information. Now, you have given me a very specific topic, and the purpose of this exercise is to give an overview of the setting of the barrier, where the barrier is set up. So you have selected maintenance issues within your HOA or within your neighborhood. That is an excellent topic for your final paper, and I like how you're moving in that direction, formulating. And I've noticed from your other posts that this is an area where you have begun to target. So that's great. What I want you to do is to instead, for this one, give some background information about this place itself. So you live in a neighborhood where you have 100 homes, you have 200 homes, you have 1,000 homes. We have multi-use, we have so-and-so, we have some, we have single family homes, we have farms, we have sidewalks and street lamps. So you want to make sure that you, instead of giving me information about the problem of lawns, which is significant because this is great in food for your final paper. But for this first one, you want to give me background information on the situation itself. So describe the location. Is it in the city? Is it in the suburbs? And again, do you have all single family homes? Is it mixed use? Is it mostly just apartments? Is it just townhouses? Does it have a little bit of everything? Does it have a local, schools involved? So that's what this background information is dedicated to. Your communication inhibitors, you've identified and labeled, and given an example. You want to make certain that you go back in your final copy and take out these additional spaces. So you want, in a final paper, you want to make certain that everything flows. For your incidents, you give awesome specific individual information about a certain type of communication. So what I want you to do, and then you list the types of inhibitors here and you explain this. Select one inhibitor. Many times an inhibitor spawns an additional inhibitor, and often it is very difficult to figure out which inhibitor are we talking about. So for the purposes of this paper, what I want you to do is just select one inhibitor and define how this specific communication displays the elements of whichever inhibitor you select. When you're giving this description, I want you to go back and reread this. These are very long sentences. When you're giving factual information to sort of data supply, you want to make certain that your statements are clear, concrete, and concise. So you want to go back and double check how these sentence structures are related to one another. So I'm going to read to you this very first one. I made several calls and left phone messages for the property management company staff assigned to my subdivision to report several property maintenance issues regarding inadequate lawn maintenance that I had observed in the community. You're telling me multiple things in that statement. You're telling me I made calls, that's one idea. I left phone messages, that's the second. I directed them to specific individuals, that's the third. Regarding my subdivision, that's the fourth. And it has to do with lawn maintenance issues, that's the fifth. So break those down into smaller pieces of concrete factual information. And then finally, you give a great discussion about this, how your rating of 60% for your evaluation. Down here is awesome. This is a suggestion, but and it supports your 60%. But what I would request that suggest that you do for your writing assignment number one, instead of telling them what they need to do, instead say, I offer, I give on a scale of 1 to 100, I give my company a 60% for its communication effectiveness. Establishing an organizational structure, or the organizational structure lacks A, B, and C. The ineffectiveness of the organizational structure contributes to this factor. Instead of, this is in writing assignment number 1, you're identifying the problems, not offering the solutions just yet. So I look forward to seeing your final.